Hello there, and welcome to a new build guide for Age of Wonders 4, and this time I am reworking my All the Dragons build, basically. So, this is a reiteration working on the Mystic Summoners, and, well, you guys also wanted a Dragon Leader if we have all the dragons as a theme. I did so. The only thing that was sadly not possible were the Necromantic Dragons, because they are just too hard to fit in, and well, necromancy is a very, very exclusive art in this game. You either go all in or you don't, in my opinion. Anyways, let's get down with what we got here. I'm very happy with this build. It was a lot of tinkering for the affinities, but I got it all down for you. So, when we go for the body traits, I went for something that works for the backline. Because frontline wise, we will be eventually using mostly wyverns and dragons and stuff that we summon, which is not influenced by these. Therefore, light-footed is really cool for ranged troops to reposition themselves, and none of our cultural melee troops hate this either. Arcane focus to make all those magic attacks hit harder. You know, we're playing Mystics, so this is just very, very important. We're also playing a variant of the Mystics that has a very low amount of damage boosters for their mages, so Arcane focus is must have on these. And Hardy for some more survivability. I mean, you can choose for yourself if you want to rock that or not, but the only thing that I see as a must-have is Arcane Focus. The rest of these, choose to your own liking. Light-footed is amazing. If you never tried it, really give it a try. It's really cool. So, the Mystic Summoning School makes our magic origin units get healed and strengthened whenever we cast spells. We'll utilize that. And we can rank up units with Astral Echoes, at least our magic origin ones. And our magic origin units get happier the more magic origin units we have on the field. I went here for my classic good combination, Keepers of Knowledge and Chosen Uniters. We have an insane income out of vassals with this one, and we have a lot of Whispering Stone power right from the get-go. This yields us 30 knowledge in the early game and gives us a really, really nice economy bonus eventually when the free cities are our vassals. It is really powerful, as this irons out the ingrained problems of the mystic culture, namely being broke most of the time. So this is a really, really cool one, and I will go in the strategy section over a couple of other things. I personally think, I don't know what I would swap into these slots if I would swap out anything. There is only one distinct downside. You start with a good alignment, which you don't want for this build. But more about that once we're done with the tomes. So, tomes. We start out with Evolution. You could basically also start out Pyromancy, but, well, it's to your own liking, honestly. I start Evolution because it gives me access to the Wyvern Fledglings as early as possible. We don't have the cultural trait to summon cheaper, but we don't need because mana is an abundant supply on the Mystic culture. I personally see that as a, I don't know. Too much mana is a thing at some point, and I felt like this was really working on it like that. The Fledgling is your bread and butter summon. We dish these out by the dozen, basically, and we evolve them eventually into tier 3 wyverns. I personally only hate one thing about these guys, namely that the fire and the frost wyverns freeze and burn work so antagonistically towards each other. So if you happen to have frost and fire wyverns in the same squad, you need to juggle a little bit. Personally, I ended up with dividing them in a frost and a ice squad eventually. Anyways, Youthful Rejuvenation allows you to make your Wyvern Fledglings have Resurgence, which means if they die, as long as you win, they come back with 50% of their HP after the fight. This combo makes you have kamikaze units that you can just use however you see fit. This is really cool. Make use of it. Rapid Evolution Enchantment comes on in handy to get that evolution scheme in faster. It also makes the tier 1 and tier 2 troopers of yours, or tier 1, we only have tier 1 evolvers here, even more obnoxiously hard to kill. If you couple that with the Resurgence, it's really cool, because it just forces the enemy to waste a lot of time to kill something which eventually grows back after you have won. Draconic Vitality is a nice icing on the cake, and also the reason why I personally went for the Hardy trait on this build, because I love to have a lot of HP on my troops, and that helps out a lot. The other tier 1, Pyromancy. So here we go for a little bit of a cherry picking thing. The Pyromances are what we want pretty much first and foremostly, simply because the Summoner School has no tier 3 battle mages, so we source our battle mages elsewhere. The Pyromances are in so far really cool, as they feature a good AoE nuke for us, and they have a decent basic attack as well. Magma Spirits, well, I wouldn't recommend them because I personally think we want cultural units and or dragons, nothing in between, because that works best with the things that we've selected for this build. And in comes also Searing Blades, which allows us to get more damage in against burning targets. We don't utilize Fury Arrows with this build, so I would even recommend to not research it. Sure, your skirmishers can use that, but hey, Frost Wyverns with Fury, no, just don't. It's not a good use, and I would personally just leave it all out. Ignite and Immolate come in as nuke spells. Pretty good. It's either single target or AoE, and we can set our enemies ablaze with the Pyromances. We don't need Fury Arrows when we have Pyromances. Easy as that. And Ritual Pyres allow us to drain more mana out of Foresters, which is a very, very good thing, because we are mana hungry at the end of the day. Tier 2, we pick up Tome of the Doom Herald. We also picked that up because of the Affinity game, but in all honesty, it is a very good fit for this build. Joy Siphoners will make all of your supporters and backliners in general drain the enemy's morale, which makes them easier to, they deal less damage. And Crew Weaponry gives our entire frontline a 30% damage bonus once we've cracked the enemy morale. Banshees, once we can afford to summon them, are tier 3 battle mages, tanky battle mages that we can send in, and their only downside is that they don't benefit from our body traits, so they are in and out pretty weak, so would be careful with these. I think they are not as good as they look on the label for these. Prelude of Doom and Cause Despair can be used to grind down the enemy's morale faster to get the Crew Weaponry bonus in. Doom Depth Trench. You see, this is the reason why we want to be evil, because evilness pays out with these things. But even if you aren't evil, it's a 10 mana, 10 knowledge investment that I personally think for 100 gold is a real bargain. With the other tier 2, I went for a Beacon. Seems like an odd choice at first, but it works out so well for these. First up, Mighty Meek. We use this to amplify the damage of our or eventually obsolete troops. Arcane Guards and Arcanists hit harder, but the Wyvern Fledglings are the main stars for this spell. It makes them hit harder on all ends, it makes them cheaper due to Faithful, and makes it a good reason to keep those fledglings on your roster always, like 1 or 2 or 3. They will eventually grow out to be big units, but they benefit from Mighty Meek and the resurgence from Youthful Rejuvenation so much that you always have nice distractions that will even hit hard due to this. But it gets better when we use Covenant of the Faith. You see, we are a lot about vassalizing people, so we gain profit out of vassalizing people. Also, the troops from the Rally of the Leashes become cheaper because of Faithful. It's really cool. Blast Reinforcements is a interesting spell insofar as you can support your vassals so freaking cheap. 45 mana for 2 tier 3 units that you're not even ought to pay for. Good stuff. So I really think this is an underrated spell, at least in my book. I always thought it was kind of crappy until I realized how big these boys are. Lightbringers. So Lightbringers are a alternative to Pyros if you want to start turning around enemy troops. So I personally think these are, again, not as good as your Pyromancers, but they can have a use if you like to play around with these things. But the main things here are Mighty Meek. The Divine Beacon can also be used for a nice healing field, and Covenant of the Faith. Extra reinforcements if you want to. We hit tier 3 with the obvious thing here. Here you go. Obviously, dragons. So here we gain young dragons, and this is the biggest bummer, and I need a second of ranting here. Young dragons are neither animals nor magic origin units. That means we can't evolve them with or astral echoes. I'm okay with that. The only thing I'm not okay with is the fact that even when they are grown out as a tier 5 unit, they are not even neither magic origin nor animal troops, which kind of blows because that means the entire book here is sort of anti-synergistic with the Mystic Summoner School, because none of these troops will synergize with your innate abilities. This sounds worse though than it is. It means only that we need to level up these traditionally. They turn eventually into pretty good units. Their main takeaway here, though, is we actually don't want to evolve them fast. Sounds crazy, right? But hear me out. The thing is, as long as they are evolving troops, they still count as troops that have units with evolve. So Youthful Rejuvenation gives them resurgence. In a nutshell, this combination means you can use these tier 3 dragons as insane throwaway units that can just grow back after the fight. They will replace your tier 1 wyverns, basically, entirely, because they are just a better version of that. You also gain Purifying Flame, which can be quite useful. Flame of Focus, though, is something I really think is an amazing thing for this build. So all of our battle mages now gain another nuke. Pyros have now 2 nukes that they can fling around. Even the Banshees and the Lightbringers now gain, with this one, a lot more versatility. Leave it to your own imagination. It is a nice one, though, to have, and I really, really think it's a good add-on. Dragon Attack is interesting as so far as everybody has very high tendency to start burning, which is good for our overall damage output. And last but not least, the Draconian Transformation. We gain the Dragon unit type, which means we deal more damage the more hurt if we are a little bit hurt, and we regenerate. It sounds not like much, but it's pretty cool to make us more resilient. And that's, you see, I invested a little bit into the resilience game here. And last but not least, with an Iris. These are pretty cool as we gain another knowledge gain, and we can finally hire wyverns by our own volition, which is pretty cool because the tier 1s, they really kind of, young dragons are better than tier 1 wyverns, end of the line. The other tier 3 to pick up now is Sanctuary, and yeah, will. Keeper's Mark is a little bit bonkers when proccing on dragons, okay? But these tier 3 dragons, I can't help it, they're fighters, so they are involved into this scheme here. Long story short, your frontliners will become a lot cheaper due to gaining Faithful, and a lot harder to kill due to gaining Steadfast. This is just a really, really cool thing. Anointed People gives our backline yet another nice smidge of resilience. We have a wonderful full-on healing if anything goes wrong, and Consecrated Domain and Healing Spires make it a pain to deal with your cities on your own terrain. Sanctuary gives us again a little bit more mana, not bad at all. And with tier 4 we go into our final form of sorts, Calamity. So our build has all the affinities to pick up Calamity and Prosperity, which has been the scheme all along. Calamity allows us to hire Calamity Dragons, power up our troops, power up our defenses, give us a nice AoE spell, and give us an Accursed Shrine, which has Magic Origin troops. The Calamity Dragons are also Magic Origin troops. The Prosperity Tomes units are also all Magic Origin troops, so they all synergize with the Mystic Summoner School. This is, at the end of the day, you want these shrines, and these troops coming out of these shrines are amazing for your build all over the board, because, they synergize with your own culture so darn well. And the rest of the spells here are just, it's just nuts. This build allows you to pick up 2 of the most overloaded tomes in the game and have fun with it. Technically, you could leave out the Tome of the Dragon, but since we have this nice interaction with Resurgence and all, I finally found them extremely useful even if I wasn't able to get them properly evolved, which is extremely fun. So, I went here army-wise for, like I said, a dragon leader. I went for Shadow Affinity, not because I need any affinities. You can't pick any affinity. The affinity game is entirely sealed by or books and or cultural traits. If you are calculating a little bit around, you might be even able to swap around a wee bit. Anyways, so we're picking up here Ritualist Dragon. Let's see, pen here. So the Ritualist Dragon Lord is insane insofar as we can utilize regenerating support and exhilarating Dragon's Roar, which is allowing you to just, I really like this. It's really, really good. It also allows us to heal a ton on our troops, and I really think that this gets us somewhere. I want to also talk about a cultural roster, as per usual, of course, but I wanted to get into the Dragon Leader here first up, because I felt like this was really something worth mentioning. So, Arcane Guards and Arcanists are troops that you just can't lose over the time. You shouldn't train too many of these because you don't want to keep these. If you want to invest anything early on, go for the Wyvern Fledglings, as these are so much more interesting frontliners at all points. The problem with the Arcanists is that they just are a worse version of everything. Their only upside is that with Mighty Meek eventually they gain an okay damage profile. When we have tier 2 though, we want to pick up a couple of Soothers. These guys allow us to finally patch up the frontline even more, have a decent smack, and make our spells cheaper. That's really, really good. We also gain spell shields, which I personally love a lot. They have Sundering Resistance, which is extremely useful, because that amps up the damage of your backliners, which is also a reason why we get a free without boosting up our battle mage damage quite a lot. So use these guys. These are a pretty important part of your army, and their point blank stun makes them insanely useful at all points of the game. It's also worth mentioning that sundering the resistances of your enemies is also reducing the status resistance, which means they're easier to stun, just so you can use it to your own advantage. And pyromancers. Like I said, your bread and butter battle mage deals a decent amount of damage, can nuke, eventually nuke twice, and yeah, I like these guys. There's nothing not to like about them. And when we hit tier 3, we get our summoners. Summoners are a little bit underwhelming at the first glance, but at the end of the day, their astral bond can be put onto many interesting troops, and Frenzy is pretty powerful. I mean, a Frenzied Wyvern is top-notch damage. And they can also summon creatures, which is pretty cool. They can summon all manner of different types of spirits. Personally, I like for this build the magma spirits a lot. We have fire nukes because they have the ability to set people on fire for us, and they can fire from the backline. Nature Affinity, the Tide Spirits here again are antagonistic to our plans, as are the Snow Spirits, because Freeze doesn't play nicely until we have Ghostfire on the run. So, as you can see, we're playing here a lot for the vassalization, and the Rally of Allegiance is another instrument that I need to point towards to, as we can here easily, as you see, just hire whatever we want from our neighbors. You can choose to your own liking. The key to this build's success lies for me in being swarmy, maintaining a good progress in terms of vassalizing cities and building armies. You can really grow big very, very fast. But what I personally really want to stress out here is to keep on pace with your knowledge production. Especially the Doom Depth trenches are really powerful to have, and the more knowledge you crank out, the faster you are where you want to be. This is pretty much an arms race build insofar as the moment as you hit your first tier 4 tome, you grow into insanely majestic proportions. You can't even choose if you are already winning hard. You can press the win harder button with Calamity, and if you are struggling a little bit, you can pick up Prosperity to gain an essential piece of survivability, making it so much harder to kill you. Overall, if you lack vassals, break off a war wherever you can and vassalize your enemies. That's the best way to gain vassals if you lack these. So war is a really important resource for you, so you should really try to generate war justifications wherever you can, or just provoke the enemy to attack you by settling into their faces and whatnot. In any case, war is insofar good for you as you also have access Imperium-wise to knowledge milking from the heroes very, very early on, and we also have access to a ton of Whispering Stones. So we want a lot of vassals, because again, a lot of vassals means a lot of all-seeing. Eventually, the Court of Whispers allows us even to utilize our Whispering Stones even on enemy vassals, so it's just a good story all over. You also can use here Impressment to gain faster experience on your tier 1 troops. Strongly recommend also here Shadow Binding to make the costs decrease for your magic origin units, and we can increase our research game with these spells here. It's a very, very potent combination where all of the parts of the build work pretty decently together, except for a few missing spots like the Lightbringers and the Banshees, which are personally, in my humble opinion, among the weakest parts of the build. I also want to point out here how amazing I found the application of, where is it? My culture is racekeeper with others. That's why what I really found important Wayfinder enchantment is for this culture extremely beneficial because we're hunting astral echoes. That's what I want to point down to. Therefore, research astral divination eventually, because it allows you to spend your mana abundance into more astral echo generation. The thing here is quite simple. Astral echoes are so interesting because they allow us either to take a meager tier 1 wyvern fledgling and promote it until it turns into a real wyvern. We also can evolve our tier 3 wyverns into crazy monsters, because you see, the more experience they got, the more deadly they are. Don't shy away from using your astral echoes on a lot on your wyverns, because they are one of the reasons why you have such an insane early. You can get way too fast to the point where you just have these bad boys. And check out the upkeep here. The difference between upkeep between a regular wyvern and a Frost and a tier 3 wyvern was just 6 mana difference here. I don't know if it is influenced here, but I just want to point out the thing is that the basic wyvern is already pretty cheap, and that they are low maintenance tier 3 troops. Low maintenance tier 3 troops. So insane. You have so much power on your fingertips. The only downside is really take care what you freeze and what you burn, because that just doesn't work well together if you don't. Anyways, all the dragons united under this build feels really, really good. I did notice, though, the build has a little bit of a weak side until you hit the beacon area. Until then, I really had feeling as if I was easy to topple over and had problems with facing overwhelming odds. Usually I'm better at beating overwhelming odds early on, so this is something I really noticed when I was playtesting this. So you grow nigh unstoppable, though, the longer this goes, because I personally think among the current tomes that you can play, this entire order shtick with all the steadfastness and healing and hard to kill stuff is among the most obnoxious things to counter, and we have so much healing and boosting in this build without losing too much momentum. I really like this one. This is one of my favorites among the dragon builds in my personal opinion. So yeah, give it a try. Leave me a like, leave me a subscribe, leave me some comments, and let me know what you want to see next. And of course, feel free to check out the description box. There's plenty of links down there. Thanks for checking out these, and I hope you enjoyed. See you all next time. Bye-bye.